For more on the high school ranks, we bring back Joe D. from the SAC B. Joe, you've been covering the prep level since the Great Flood in Old Sacramento in 1861. All right, I know it was a couple days ago. Nevertheless, Grant is back, baby, from a winless last year to state champs this year. Is this the most impressive turnaround you've seen in a season?
Oh, yeah. I've been at the B forever and a day, and I remember sandbags in the 1870s or whatever it was. Teams don't go winless and then win a state championship. It just doesn't happen anywhere, but Grant's different, and that's the guy right there, Carl Reed, who's so responsible for that. Him and assistant head coach Sid Thompson, who's a Pacer player. Carl was a player there. His father, Lynn Reed, was a player there and a longtime coach, a longtime teacher, and the Pacers found a way. It's just remarkable. And yeah, they were in the Sierra Foothill League for a couple of years, and it brought them to their knees. It humbled them. They went winless last season. That's so well chronicled. And then they got into the Metro League, which was a better fit, and they got better. Players didn't leave. They didn't bail. It's an era of transfers, and they just stuck around. All these players that we've talked about, Carell Goss, Pruitt, and JoJo McCray, and all that. So many of those guys, they're so bonded. And so many of these Pacers, like Hart here, there's pictures of Hart. Hamilton scored the touchdown on social media wearing his youth jersey from 10 years ago to now. So they grow up wanting, and kudos to them. They've earned every bit of it.
And we have some of those players returning next year, so it's going to be a fun one. In 4AA, Escalon taking home the state title, while Houston took home their first ever state trophy in school history. That was in Division 5. How big is this for their two small communities?
It's amazing, Sarah. They're both rival programs from the Trans Valley League. It's this powerhouse small school league, as good as anywhere on the West Coast. And so these two championship games were played in the mud, as we could say here. And the losers aren't doing that. Only the winners are doing the mudslides, by the way. And so the games were contested about 20 miles apart, and it's small school pride unlike anything. All homegrown kids, their fathers played for these programs, and their parents went to these schools. And it was muddy, good fun for the winners, but that's kind of part of it. And these programs in the 209, in the small school areas down there, they've mudded before, and Escalon's is now 3-0 state championships, and I think Escalon in 2010 won its first state championship in LA at the Home Depot Center in the mud, same as Folsom that night. So it happens.
All right, Joe, one last quick one, and I need a quick answer. Speaking of these small schools, I saw you retweet this on Twitter last night, but why is the CIF having these smaller divisions host these state championship games at home instead of finding a neutral site, especially when games like last night were not played in ideal conditions?
Well, Jake, ideally all these games are in good conditions, but there's so many divisions, so many schools, that the upper divisions are at one site down in Southern California, and then the others are at home sites, and it rotates every year. This is what the coaches voted on, what the board of directors voted on, and yeah, there's mud, but unless somebody wants to host all of these games and send a bid to the CIF, it's going to remain this way, and the CIF is always listening to bids. The emails and phone lines are open.